James Turner was a successful businessman in his late 30s, living in a bustling city. He had everything one could ask for: a thriving career, a beautiful home, and a loving family. But there was one part of his life he rarely spoke about, a chapter filled with pain and regret. It was something he had buried deep inside, hoping it would never resurface. One evening, as James was walking home from work, he took a different route. The weather was cold, and he pulled his coat tighter around him, eager to get home. As he passed by a small park, he noticed a group of homeless people huddled together for warmth. It was a common sight in the city, but something drew his attention to one boy sitting apart from the rest. The boy couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 years old, his clothes tattered and dirty, his face pale and thin. But what caught James's eye was a birthmark on the boy's hand, just visible as he reached out to pick up a discarded piece of bread. It was a small crescent-shaped mark, identical to the one James had on his own hand. His heart skipped a beat. James froze in his tracks, staring at the boy. That birthmark was unique. His mother had always told him it was something special, something that had been passed down in their family for generations. He had never seen it on anyone else until now. He approached the boy cautiously, his mind racing. "Hey kid," James called out, trying to keep his voice steady. The boy looked up, his eyes wide with fear and mistrust. "I'm not going to hurt you," James said softly, crouching down to the boy's level. I saw your birthmark. It's the same as mine." He held out his hand, revealing the same crescent-shaped mark on the back of it. The boy stared at the mark, then back at James, his expression a mix of confusion and surprise. "What do you want?" the boy asked, his voice trembling. "What's your name?" James asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Oliver," the boy replied. James felt a chill run down his spine. Oliver. That was the name he and his wife had chosen for their first child. But tragedy had struck when their baby was just a few weeks old. A car accident had taken the life of their newborn son, a wound that had never fully healed. But Oliver had been born with that same birthmark, a mark James had thought was lost forever. "Where are your parents?" James asked, his heart pounding in his chest. The boy looked down at the ground, his voice barely audible. "I don't have any. I've been on the streets for as long as I can remember." James felt tears welling up in his eyes. The boy had the same name, the same birthmark. Couldn't be a coincidence. A wild, impossible thought entered his mind. What if this boy was his son? What if somehow he had survived the accident and had been lost all these years? James couldn't let this go. He took the boy to a nearby diner, where they could talk more in warmth and safety. Over hot food, Oliver told him his story. A life of hardship, moving from one shelter to another, never knowing who his parents were. James's mind raced. He needed answers, but most of all, he needed to know the truth. Over the next few days, he arranged for a DNA test. The wait was agonizing, filled with hope and fear in equal measure. What if he was wrong? But what if he was right? When the results came back, James's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. The words on the page confirmed what his heart had already told him. Oliver was his son. The accident had not claimed his life, but it had taken him away from his family. James felt a wave of emotions: relief, guilt, joy, and sorrow all at once. How could this have happened? How had his son ended up on the streets, alone and forgotten? But those questions could wait. What mattered now was that they were together again. James took Oliver home that day, introducing him to the life he should have had. It was a difficult adjustment, but one filled with love and hope. James's wife, Emily, wept when she saw the birthmark and heard the truth. Their son had returned to them against all odds. The story of Oliver's return quickly spread, capturing the hearts of everyone who heard it. It was a story of loss and reunion, of the bond between a father and his son that even tragedy could not break. And as James tucked Oliver into bed each night, He couldn't help but marvel at the turn of fate that had brought his son back to him. The birthmark, once a painful reminder of what he had lost, was now a symbol of what he had found: hope, family, and a future they could build together.